Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Devils in God's Country. I'm one of your hosts, Casper Rigsby. It's my lovely, talented, wonderful co-host, Miss Allie Jackson. Say hi, Miss Allie.
Hi, everybody.
We also have our new resident co-host, Mr. Tony Prouse, with us here tonight. Say hello, Tony.
Hey guys, what's up?
And as a special treat for everyone tonight, we have Mr. Dan Arel. He is a pretty well-known blogger in the atheist community, for those who actually, take the time to read. And Dan has also published a couple books. He's got a new book coming out in November. So we wanted to take some time to talk with Dan. His new book is dealing with secular activism. So we wanted to take some time to talk to Dan about that subject and about his next book. So I'll just go ahead and let Dan start us off. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Oh, thank you for having me. And it's actually coming out October 1st, so a couple more, about another week or so. So yeah, I'm really glad to be on the show. I'm really excited to talk about the book and anything else.
So
I'm sure we've got lots we can talk about.
Oh yeah. I guess to start us off on the main topic that we're all interested in discussing, let's talk about how you got into secular activism. Like, I'm sure you've been an atheist for quite some time, but what brought you into the realm of wanting to actually get out there and see if you can make a difference through any multiple avenues of activism?
It was kind of an accident for me, really. I was always pretty vocal about how I felt, but never really considered it to be activism in any real sense of the word. And then I got laid off from a job I had at the time, and being unemployed and sitting in front of Facebook a lot, sort of boredom turns into more posts and more involvement and more reading. And then I kind of realized something. I wanted to be more involved. I wanted to speak up. And just started I started a blog that maybe my mom read, but nobody else. If something I wrote got 280 views, I'd be like, wow, 280 people read what I just wrote. How is that possible? And I went to the American Humanist Conference when it came to town, just kind of on a whim, and was blown away. I was really inspired by everybody I saw, people I heard speaking, the work they were doing. And from there, I saw Katha Pollitt, who writes for The Nation. She's a really great feminist, like pro-abortion, but pro-choice author. She writes a lot about that. She's really inspiring. And she gave a talk about how to be a writer. And I happened to kind of stumble into it without really I'm going to be a writer, so I want to go to this. I just said, oh, Katha Pollitt's here to speak, and left saying, I have to write more. And I just started writing and sort of putting my views out there, talking about what I cared about. And then one day tweeted at Ken Ham that I thought he was stealing money from taxpayers, and a whole new career was born.
Yeah, I've been following your work with Ken Ham very closely ever since it began, and all the work you've been doing on the Ark Encounter. I think you've been at the forefront of that, even so much as having mainstream media pay attention to what you've been writing, what you've been saying there, and actually looking into what's going on there and saying, hey, something seems a little fishy here. And I think it's great work that you're doing on this issue, because it's one of those things that a lot of people go, well, it's just some douchebag who wants to make a Ark museum. Like, what does it even matter? And when you read your articles and the things that you brought to the forefront on this, like his discriminatory hiring practices and his reaching out to the state of Kentucky to get federal refunds and federal money to help him do this, which is honestly, of course, we all know, a serious separation of church and state issue, and a lot of people just don't realize how much impact that has, because we're talking about impact that has that stretches across an entire community and all of Kentucky and every Kentucky taxpayer. And I hate to tell the people of Kentucky this, but not everybody in Kentucky is a Christian. I hate to tell you. and even the ones that are Christians, not all of them are creationists, and not all of them support this or want their tax dollars to go to support this. And you know, that's why we have the separation of church and state. And it's very, very cool to see how work on this topic has sparked this sort of activism, and sparked more people in saying, hey, let's talk about these things, because you know, let's bring this to the forefront, because it has impact on our communities. What drew you to Ken Ham? I've been he's been on my radar for some time, but you know, he's blocked me on every possible medium he can block me on. But what drew you to Ken Ham specifically?
Being drawn to Ken was sort of an accident, in the sense that I was drawn to Ken through Bill Nye. So one of the first pieces I wrote that actually went anywhere and became something was an article I wrote for the Richard Dawkins Foundation called "Why Bill Nye Should Not Debate Ken Ham." And it was a late to the game piece, in the sense that the debate had been set, it was happening. My article wasn't going to stop Bill Nye from doing it, but I still felt that the argument needed to be made that what he's doing was a mistake. And
I don't think anything was really going to stop Bill from doing it. I feel like he felt like it was something that he wanted to draw attention to, and you know, whether that worked out to his advantage or not, or to Ken Ham's advantage, you know, is something I don't think he was really concerned with. He just felt like he needed to draw attention to it. But I did read your article, and I did enjoy it very much.
And and so that sort of was my first touch point with Ken, because Ken commented on it, Ken shared it, Ken even highlighted it in the actual debate itself. It was something that really kind of got under his skin. And so from there, I just sort of became just watching him, not really doing much, but you know, paying attention to what he was doing, calling out, you know, things I didn't like. And then I was one day watching MSNBC, as you do, apparently, and Rachel Maddow had given a quick thing about the tax incentives that the park was being granted. And at the time, they were $72 million, not $18 million. And she went off on it. And it was a really great segment. And then that was the end of it. Like, she didn't say, like, let's go get them, let's do this, let's do that. She highlighted it, trashed the idea, but then moved on. And so suddenly the Ark Encounter was mentioned, but then forgotten. And for Atheist Republic, I actually wrote a blog post that discussed Maddow's piece and what impact that was having and why it was important to talk about. And that really, the piece actually, as far as I remember, it did really well on the site. It got read, it was shared, but you know, Ken Ham didn't really take notice until one day he tweeted that they were approved for $18 million because they had lost the 72 because they couldn't break ground in time. They never started the construction, so the state said, "Oh, you waited too long. You'll have to reapply." Ken couldn't raise the money he wanted, so he scaled the Ark down to be smaller and applied for an $18 million incentive. When he got that, I tweeted to him, like, way to go, stealing $18 million from Kentucky taxpayers, thinking that would be it. You don't think Ken Ham's going to see a tweet from just somebody and reply. And then I think a day or two later, I get told, "Hey, Ken Ham just wrote a whole blog post about you." And from that point on, we were fully engaged. We became mortal enemies where we argued almost daily. And it was a back and forth. I'd write a blog post, he'd write a blog post, I'd write a blog post. And then he announced one day he was going on the radio. And so I decided to call in and talk to him. And somehow they let me on the air. We had it out a bit. Kind of knew this was going to be my thing. I wasn't going to let this go. And I didn't think I should, because like you talked about, it has, at the finest level, you can say, oh, it's just some guy building a stupid park that people that believe this nonsense are going to go visit, and that's it. But by using taxpayer money, he, number one, sets a precedent. So other places are going to want to mimic this and use taxpayer money to build this. But even if you ignore that for a minute and think, okay, maybe somebody won't. Let's say through the course of the next 100 years, no one mimics what Ken Ham just did, and we don't see his idea snowballing, the people of Williamstown are still completely screwed. Because they're on the hook for this $100 million park of $76 million that they've invested in the land themselves, that Ken Ham only has to pay back over time. So if that park closes, Ken Ham's never paying it back. $18 million in tax incentives from the state, a state whose education system is just absolutely abysmal. It is failing. $18 million could be rolled into that school system and help greatly. But instead, it's building a giant boat. The people of Williamstown were promised this big economic boon. You're going to get Chili's and TGI Fridays and hotels, and all these people are going to flood to your town, and your town's going to become a destination. Now, you know, thinking in our terms of this country, what town doesn't want that? What town doesn't want a big economic growth that gives its people jobs, brings more people in, gives it more money? So they see this as a win. But right away, all of a sudden you have the mayor saying, because people aren't traveling to Williamstown to go see the park. They're traveling to Cincinnati next door. And they're not traveling there for the park. They're traveling there for conventions, for the zoo, for college. And if they happen to believe in creationism and Noah's Ark, they'll take the 40-minute drive, see the park, and then immediately leave Williamstown and go right back to Cincinnati. So Cincinnati may see a little increase, but Cincinnati is not in Kentucky. So Kentucky sees nothing. And so even if no one does this again and no one rips off more taxpayers, the innocent people of Williamstown are being screwed. And as someone that went to Kentucky firsthand, stood on the side of the freeway right out front of the Ark Encounter and had many, many cars honk and wave at us at our signs that they were being ripped off, they don't want that park there either. And their government lied to them, and Ken Ham lied to them, and now they're on the hook for it, and it's really going to hurt that economy for a very long time.
Oh no, I definitely agree. I would have liked to travel up there and seen you. I'm not too far away in Tennessee, so I wish I'd been able to make the trip up there and hang out with you for a little bit, and just to maybe get a glimpse of Ham and remind him to his face that I'm that guy that keeps calling him a liar for Jesus. But I think Allie's been really excited about having you on. So maybe Allie'd like to talk to you, have some questions for you or anything.
Yeah, no, I would love to speak to you, especially about this, the whole Ark thing. So I did read your blog when you spoke about why Bill Nye should not debate Ken Ham. But I did not know, because I can't stand Ken Ham. I did not know that he had actively replied. So I'm excited to look that up. But I did see some pictures from inside the Ark. I think that they were taken on maybe the opening day. And just the propaganda inside of it was very alarming. So you do mention how the people are getting ripped off, taxpayers are getting ripped off. It's not giving to the people what it promised. But this man expected like school field trips. Am I wrong about that? Like, didn't he expect schools to flock to see his Ark?
Yeah, he's trying to encourage them to visit the Ark, even being told by officials that you can't do that. That's not legal. Freedom from Religion Foundation, on the day the Ark opened, sent 1,300 schools a letter saying, "Don't you dare go to the park." And that was an important letter to send, because a lot of them are under the impression that they can do that. They do believe, oh, I can go to that park. It's okay, because it's a quote-unquote secular park, because it's not a religious organization. It's an LLC. And that's the sort of idea that Ken Ham was selling. And he's saying, look, we're not telling them that they can only come here and not the Natural History Museum. We're saying they can come here and see both sides. But we know it's bullshit. We know that that park is set up to indoctrinate kids into this being true. They claim it's scientifically and historically accurate. So what remains to be seen now is that Ken Ham has said any school that wants to come, he will let the students in for $1 each. And he's trying to get these schools to accept and do that. So now it remains to be seen if a school does it. And the second a school tries, you better believe the Freedom from Religion Foundation or Americans United or American Atheists will be right there, jumping right on it and putting a stop to it. So I don't think we'll see schools there because everyone's watching for it. But I do think we're going to see schools try. And it will be detrimental to the school that does because they're going to wind up losing a lot of money off being promised by Ken Ham that they're going to be safe to do so.
And I hope they do, in all honesty. I mean, like, I do hope that one school does try and they do get it handed to them pretty hard, because people, if my kids' school were like, okay, we're going to go to this creationist museum, I'm not afraid of my children learning anything. I'm not. But I don't want their time to be spent at school learning about bullshit fairy tales. You know what I mean? Like have fun, have your fun. Teach about the mythology. I think that's great. I think that's fun. But when we start taking them to museums that have he's got propaganda. He has a plaque in that museum that completely rips off Voltaire. Those who can make you commit. What is this quote? Hold on. Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. He ripped that off. There's this plaque up there that says, like, those who can make you not believe in the Ark can send you to hell. I don't know. It's basically he used the exact same wording, only just switched up to match his agenda. So it's just, to me, it's full of this ridiculous propaganda that's selling to kids. I mean, it's got tentacles all around it. It looks cool. Why wouldn't you listen to what this person is saying? How cool is that? They've got dinosaurs in this Ark. They prove that the Ark was efficient because they shoveled the manure from, like, the dinosaurs or something. I know I probably know this stuff, but to me, it's just that is so absurd. That is absurd.
A really funny thing about the inside of the Ark is that every woman has a name. So, but if you read the Bible, no women have names.
Right.
And so David Smalley from Dogma Debate asked, where do these names come from? And the guy that was giving the Torah said, we took a poll among employees and we all submitted our favorite names and those were chosen. And, like, Noah's wife, her name was Hebrew for Ariel because the guy that named her really loved The Little Mermaid. That's how historically accurate the museum is.
Wow.
Like, they literally just had to make stuff up as it happened because there was so much stuff that it's not mentioned in the Bible. The Bible very rarely mentions much about inside that Ark. And
I'm sorry. I was just going to say this really infuriates me because, Ken trying to pass this off as some secular attraction is just asinine. Because as I've tweeted to Ken, as I've tried to talk to Ken repeatedly, it's just a very simple concept. Okay, do you have to believe Christianity in order to be a young Earth creationist? Yes. Okay, it's a religious idea then. It's not a secular idea. You've got to be a Christian to believe this shit. So it's not secular. You don't have to be an atheist. You don't have to be an atheist to agree with science. Like, you can be any religion and still agree with science and say, yes, that's factually fucking true. But if you have to believe the Bible first, and Ken says that, AIG says that all the time, first believe the Bible and then make all your other judgment calls based on what the Bible says. That's religious dogma. That's not science.
Yeah. And it's contradictory to his own message of saying, this is a ministry. This is a religion. He'll consistently call it a religious ministry until the government says, yeah, but, and then I'm like, oh, whoa. It's an LLC. And so he can't even separate the two because he has to sell it as religious to get people to go. But then he has to sell it as secular to get taxpayer money. So he has to walk this tightrope. And he doesn't do a very good job of that. I mean, his reasoning and his logic aren't that strong. And so when he tries to kind of walk these legal tightropes, he just stumbles. And it took an activist judge and it took a Tea Party governor to make this happen for him. I mean, it wasn't something that anybody else would have gotten done. The Democratic governor at the time said no. The Democratic nominee to be elected for governor said no. And it literally took a Tea Party governor to come in, an activist judge to ignore previous Supreme Court rulings that completely say that this park should never be given a dime. And then it takes the governor to fire the entire tourism tax board and replace it with people he likes doing vote of approval. So there was a lot of stuff at play to make this happen. It wasn't as though, it was one simple, judge that said, you know what, you can't discriminate, here's the thing. No, it was a judge known for religious rulings, and then it was a governor that made multiple moves in his own government to make sure it happened. And I hate sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but it's all out in the open. It wasn't hidden. He didn't fire everybody secretly. He fired everybody openly and replaced them. And he replaced them with, I think, like 8 people, and 7 of them voted yes on the park. Where before, the entire staff said no way.
It's only a conspiracy theory if you can't actually show the facts behind the reality of the situation.
Of course.
This isn't a theory. This is what actually happened. So there is a conspiracy. That there were people colluding together to do something that is obviously underhanded, and obviously flies in the face of everything that we know that the federal government should abide by. So it's a terrible situation for the people of Kentucky and just the United States in general, because like you said, it sets a precedent.
It's also embarrassing. I mean, really, we live in a country now that has a giant landlocked boat in the middle of a field in a town of 3,000 people, and that city and that state advertises it on their flyers. That's what people see when they come here, when they drive through there or go there. And that reflects on the entire country and sort of really does become the perfect symbolism for where we are right now. Like where this country is in its acceptance of evolution, its acceptance of science. That Ark is like this pinnacle of this is the US right now. And under it can be Ken Ham and Chilstein and Eric Hovind and that guy that loves avocados, whose name I can't think of right now. But it sort of becomes this whole like this is our country right now, and only in this country at this time could that Ark really exist. But thankfully, it's not prospering. A glimmer of hope that while our country can allow something like that to be built, we don't seem that interested in actually going.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure Ken would like to say, hey, free speech, freedom of expression, blah blah blah. And of course, you're welcome to your opinions. Everybody's welcome to their opinions. It's just, we don't have to accept it as being, an acceptable thing that we're all like, oh no, that's okay. The KKK is welcome to their fucking opinions too. But most of us are sitting here going, hey, you guys look like real fucktards. Take those sheets off your face.
Yeah. And Ken, build your big boat, have your friends and family go see it, but don't take a dime from taxpayers and file it as a religious nonprofit if you're going to want to discriminate and make sure people work there that only you want. You need to follow the law. And as much as even religious discrimination sucks, there's a reason we have separation of church and state. And we do make that legal. He can, as if they were a ministry, he could say, look, only young earth creationists can work here. And he's not going to pay taxes, but we're not going to give him land. We're not going to give him all of the, or we shouldn't give him all of these things. We know we give churches way too much. But he decided he wanted to take part in these programs, so he needs to follow the law, plain and simple. And if he wants to be this big religious park, then be a big religious park. Just be honest about it. You can build your stupid boat and people can throw their money at you to build it, but don't ask us for help because we're not responsible for your idiocy.
Tony, do you have anything you wanna throw it down?
Did you happen to? I forget. Did you say that you went to the Ark?
I did not go inside. I went to the protest. I was unwilling to pay to go inside, and I missed the invitation from Eric Hovind to go with a group of people into the park, unfortunately, because I would have loved to have gone, especially with Eric. But I was actually doing an interview at the time. I guess Eric was going around inviting people, and I missed it. But it worked out because instead of going into a filthy Ark, I got to go back to a hotel room and take a shower.
Now, I only ask because I think Aaron Wall did a video about the Ark, and he actually went inside, and of course, things like a 35-minute video shows him I think debating someone, then going inside, and it was just awful.
Yeah, he debated Eric Hovind outside.
And there was just awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that Tracy Moody actually she's written a few items where she basically has said, you know, she kind of feels sorry for Ken, and she doesn't think he's the boogeyman and all this. So you know, I know that we both know Tracy from Facebook and stuff, and we all kind of communicate with each other a little bit. And I was just curious about your take on her position there. Like, you know, is she just a little too sweet? Is she just a little too nice on Ken?
she's very nice. Not to her fault either. That's a wonderful way to be. And yeah, I mean, we spoke at the Ark protest, me and her, and that was the first time we had ever met. We talk frequently, and I actually wrote a piece in response to hers about why I don't respect Ken Ham in the way she does, or she feels bad. Or, you know, I can feel bad on a human level that this is something he really is truly passionate about, and it really is truly going to fail, and he's going to be sad. And on a very fundamental human level, I don't want people to be sad or be depressed or have things go wrong for them. But at the same time, I want a park that is telling kids that this nonsense is true to be gone. And if he has to be sad for that to happen, I'm willing for him to be sad. At the same time, I think he's more of a boogeyman than Tracy had argued in her piece, because Ark aside, he has spoken very vocally that gay couples should not have the right to be married, that women should not have a right to an abortion, that teens should not be having any sex or sex education whatsoever. So he's putting out dangerous ideas apart from the Ark, apart from creationism altogether. So we can even forget about the fact that he's poisoning kids' minds. He's poisoning them, or with education, I should say, with poisoning their minds. He's poisoning their minds with anti-gay hatred. He's poisoning their minds with anti-women's rights nonsense. And maybe actually more dangerous than the idea of creationism, because creationism can be untaught. But it's harder to... I don't want to say it that way. I don't like the way because you can unteach anything. I mean, people, homophobes and bigots can all come out of it, but that has a real impact. If I tell you I believe in creationism, you can think in your head I'm dumb and walk away. If you're an 11-year-old kid who is discovering that they're attracted to boys and you're a boy, and I come and tell you that you're a sinner, you're going to hell, that's going to affect you much differently than hearing that I believe in a 6,000-year-old Earth. That's going to cause you to go to your house and possibly kill yourself. That's going to make you miserable. Poisoning their minds in a sense that he can have a direct effect on people's lives and well-being. Where creationism is something we would like to undo because we don't want a bunch of kids that grow up because they're literally morons that believe dinosaurs and humans existed and can't get real public sector jobs or science jobs, or science stops in this country. I'll deal with that, but I also want to make sure that monsters like Ken Ham aren't making kids go home and slit their wrists because they're being told that they are an abomination to mankind because they happen to like the same gender that they are.
You have anything else you want to speak about, Allie?
Yeah, on that topic. So I know that I don't know you on a personal level, but that's my story. I've got a son who's gay, very, very young, and it was hard. He was on social media for a little while, and it was really hard when he would see things that were homosexuals should be killed. Homosexuals. There was Manny, the boxer, who said that and lost his deal with Nike. That was hard. It was hard. And then how do you take that back from your kid? How do you say, oh, he's just a moron? Oh, he's just stupid. Don't listen to him. Look at all the people who do listen to him. Look at the people that don't stand up against that kind of shit. And that's exactly what it leads to. That leads to self-loathing children who hate themselves for being exactly who they are. That breeds a mentality of I am not deserving as everybody else, because they hear it their entire lives. They see it on social media. They read it from these assholes like Ken Ham. It's constantly just told them over and over and over and over and over. And then they're afraid to be who they are. They don't want to stand up for their own rights, because what right do they have? Everyone's against them. Everyone hates them. And it just breeds so much hatred. So is he a monster? He's a monster. He's a monster. And I think that I do see Tracy's side where she wants to say, look, guys, he's not the boogeyman. I can understand, because it's hard to look at that man and not feel pity. I pity him. And I pity him a hell of a lot more than just the losing out of the Ark. The Ark wasn't a great success. I pity him more than that. I pity him because he has lost out on so much love that this world has to offer, because he has been so busy spreading his spiteful hate. And it's, I feel sorry for him on a billion different levels. So I can see where she'd go off saying that. But no, as a parent, I can't sit here and say that men like him are okay. They're not monsters. I can't agree with that.
Yeah, and I was on the Atheist Manifesto yesterday, and we talked about why we protest, why we do what we do, and as to how do we tell those kids that you're not wrong, you're not messed up, you're not immoral, you're not any of these things. You're you, and you're perfect the way you are, and you're who you are. You don't need to change to appease anybody. And we start talking about, like I said, why we do what we do. And people bring up a lot of times, like, why do you bother with Ken Ham? If you just ignored him, he'd go away. And he wouldn't, because if we just ignored him, he'd still spread his message. We just wouldn't listen to it. And the topic came up about, the idea of protesting Westboro Baptist Church. They're a small family. They're a small church. They have very little real impact that you would think. But they show up to funerals and they protest, and people see them. And we think to ourselves, oh, we should ignore them, not engage them, because that's what they want. But again, you're an 11-year-old boy, you're driving in a car, you're confused as hell in your head about your sexuality and who you are, even your gender, and you look out your window and you see Westboro Baptist Church signs, and you feel awful, and you look around and that's all you see. Or you're in that car and you see Westboro Baptist Church signs, then you look out your other car window and you see people holding up signs that tell you that you're loved, that you're perfect, that you're okay, and that they're there for you. That sends a message. So I don't care if I'm giving Ken Ham attention. I don't care if I'm giving Westboro Baptist Church attention, because I'm not there for them. I'm there for the person passing by that's being told that by another group that they're not worth it. Or and if you go to education, I'm there for the kid that walks by and thinks, oh, I have to believe the Ark is true because my mom's saying so, and this old guy with a beard is saying so. When, a lot of the signs we had at the Ark Encounter protest were about this. I wanted kids to look out their window and see us and think, oh, there's something else. And they might go to the Ark and think it's beautiful and wonderful, but we've planted that seed when they looked out their window and saw us, that they don't necessarily have to accept this as true, and that not everybody does. And when I was at the Ark protest, I spent so much time in front of cameras or in front of reporters talking to them, and that was one of the biggest messages I kept saying. I said, you know what, we don't want them using taxpayer money, but we also want people to know that you don't have to believe this. Just because people inside are telling you it's true doesn't make it so. And that, I wanted a van full of school kids to go by to look out and be curious as to why we were there.
And to me, that makes you a hero. I mean, ultimately, that is a huge deal for a kid. Had I had something like that, had I been fortunate enough to see someone like you on the side of the street saying, you don't have to believe this. When I was a kid, I wonder where I'd be now. I mean, just to get a lot, I mean, as a kid, I remember I didn't even think I had permission to really have my own thoughts and opinions about things. I was told homosexual is nasty, it's perverted, and I was to hate homosexuals. I was told that Muslims were wrong and atrocious and they should be treated like animals. Like that's what you're raised to believe. And when you don't have anybody to check that or anybody to say, you don't have to feel that way, it's a lot harder to get out of that. I mean, luckily for me, I kind of always rejected that bullshit, but it wouldn't be wrong for a kid necessarily not to, it's what they're born into. It's what happens. So to me, you going out there, spending your time dedicating to, if my kid, oh my God, if he ever has to pass a Westboro Baptist protest at some funeral or something like that, God hates fags, blah, 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 to see somebody standing out there saying, you're loved, kid. We love you no matter what. You're loved no matter what. My heroes. They'd be my heroes. And they'd be my son's heroes. And I think that that's such a beautiful way to describe atheist activism. So many people say it's there. Why don't you just shut up and ignore it? Oh, you don't believe in God? Shut up and ignore it. Then don't talk about it. And it's like, well, it's not God. It's the people who do these atrocious things in the name of God that make us have to stand up and do something. But your explanation is just amazing. And I hope a lot of people hear that and that kind of sparks something in them to say, I'm not doing anything Saturday. There's something I can go out and do. I can be a voice, and you could be a hero.
And that's and that kind of and that sort of wraps in the perfect plug for my book, because that's why I wrote The Secular Activist. It wasn't to talk about what I did to Ken Ham, because I talked about what other activists did around the country as well. I talked about people that stood up and got secular invocations done in their communities, and the reason I did that was because these were all people that were sitting at home one day, saw something that was wrong, and instead of waiting for someone else to act, they acted. And that's what I wanted to see happen. Because, to a degree, that's sort of what happened to me with Ken Ham. I saw something I didn't like, and I did something. And it turned into something big. People go to a city council meeting for a reason. They hear a prayer and say, hey, wait. Well, if I can't stop it, they should at least do a secular one. They request a secular one, they're told no. And instead of going home and thinking that sucks, they say, no, that's not enough, and they fight for it. Commandments goes up somewhere, and a group fights for it. And that's what we're doing. That's what secular that's what secular activism is. And I want the book to become a manifesto of sorts of pick this up, read it, and then go out and do it. And that's the hi bud. That was the entire idea behind it. Was I wanted to create for people that already are activists that just don't think that what they're doing can do enough. Because a lot of times we think, sharing this on Facebook, oh, that's great, but that's not activism. But I actually talk about slacktivism as a form of actual activism in this book. It matters. When you tell your friends how you feel, you impact them. When you tell your friends, I'm standing up for gay rights, and you live in a community where many people don't, and most of your friends and coworkers might not be on the same page as you, but they're Facebook friends with you, you impact them, and you impact the other ones that are thinking the same, that are too afraid to say it, to say something. And so there's lots of different levels of activism. You don't have to be a full-time activist. You can be an activist once in a while and make a massive impact on someone's life. And that was the whole point of my entire book, was as much as I love telling the Ken Ham story again and again and again, as much joy out of I get of any misery I can cause him. Sorry, Tracy. I want other people to know that it wasn't me being special or being extra gifted or having any sort of skill that nobody else has. I'm just like everybody else. I just happen to decide to keep on something and get it done. And everybody else can do that too. Everybody. There isn't a single person out here that can't make a difference. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that. And that's the whole point of this book.
Did you want to add something,
play this
Tony?
video game?
Just as far as Ken Ham is concerned, I hate that dude's passion, especially his comments about gays. Well, anyone in the LGBT community, because I'm actually part of a LGBT group here in Delaware. I know that our guest who doesn't know, but I am bisexual myself. Been that way for about 2 years. Probably should have figured it out sooner, but yeah, that's one of the things I fight against. I try to fight against here in Delaware, because Delaware is one of those many states that doesn't have any LGBT protections, and seeing as Delaware is like, I think, 60% Baptist, it doesn't help, and especially doesn't help when well-known jackasses like him are spouting their shit. That's all.
You know, I was very privileged, having met Dan quite a while back. Just talked to him and got to know Dan, and I was very privileged and honored that Dan let me get a copy of the book early and try and offer some critiques and some editing ideas with the book. Having read through the entire thing, I think it's a wonderful message that a lot of people out there can really relate to. If you pick up this book and you feel like, like Dan said, the little stuff I do on Facebook doesn't mean anything. Like, you pick up this book and see what Dan has to say about that, like about slacktivism and about just the idea of infecting your coworkers and your friends and your family with this idea of, hey, you know what? We might just all be fucking people, and maybe we all just want to live happy and be equal. Like, I know it's a weird fucking thing, but maybe that's something that we should all embrace. And we make a difference on small levels, and the more people that are doing it, the more people that embrace that idea that, hey, I can make a difference even if it's just at a small level. The more impact we have at a larger level, at a bigger scale. When I first got started as a blogger and doing the things I do for Atheist Republic, I didn't expect anyone to respond to me at all. I come across as sometimes very asshole-ish. I'm not a very kind and polite person about a lot of the ideas that I have, so I didn't expect people to really respond to it. And then some of my blogs on Atheist Republic have gotten 20,000 views and fucking 15,000 shares. People just sharing that idea out there, and it's humbling to know that just the simple act of putting your thoughts out there so that other people can see them can have such an impact that other people would share that and go, hey man, I really agree with this idea. And at the same time, there's other people that they really hate the things that I say. And that's good too. We can have some dialogue now. If you're willing to have constructive dialogue, we can have a talk. Because I was willing to go, hey man, I think this is absolutely ridiculous, and you're going, no, this is the right thing, and now maybe we can have some constructive talk. Maybe we can find some middle ground and some way to figure out somewhere where everybody just is equal. Like, I think that's the bottom line. That's what secular activism, that's what any of us who people want to call liberals or whatever. That's the bottom line. That's what we're looking for. Just equality. Just everybody's fucking equal. Let's treat everybody equally.
Don't you dare call me a liberal.
I love the book, Dan. We're going to be plugging the book on the show until its release date. We'll be plugging the book on the Facebook page and stuff. And of course, I've been plugging the book for you, and I'll keep doing that because I think it's a great thing, and I think a lot of people will really enjoy it and find something useful there in it.
I cannot wait for people to read it. I'm really excited about it. It's it's hard. As you read a book, and by the time you're done, you kind of hate it a bit. And you're kind of over it. You've read it 1,000 times, and the audiobook's actually read by David Smalley, and so it kind of gave me a chance to not have to read it again. But I had to listen to it to look for mistakes and look for problems, and it was really nice to hear someone else read it to me, and to hear the book. And that sort of gave me a new. I'm very proud of this book. I'm really excited about having it get out there. I'm really looking forward to hearing what people think about it, and I'm really looking forward to hearing stories from people that maybe used it. And so maybe they saw it, they went out, they did something. I wait to get those activists who went out and tried something, and if it worked or didn't work, I want to know. I want to know what. They read something in there and said, that made me want to go do this, or. You said I should try this, and I did it, and it was terrible. And I want to know because we're all in this together. We all learn from each other. I didn't teach myself activism. Activists taught me activism. And I use that in all different types of activism, political, secular, regardless. Whatever you're doing, and my child's trying to play Xbox over here. And okay, I try. We're having a bit of a guy's weekend over here. My wife and my daughter are visiting family across the country, and so we are hanging out. And I said, "Hey, you play video games while I do this, and leave me alone." And as you can tell, that's working very well. You want to be the Ducks? We're a big hockey family around here. We're playing NHL 15.
If only you were on PlayStation, I'd get in there and whoop up on you.
Yeah. You know what? I'm hoping to get a PlayStation. I would like one soon. So when I get one, we'll do that.
Definitely.
I'm on it.
Yeah, I'm a big NHL fan myself. I actually absolutely love the Preds here in Tennessee. I was not a huge fan. I used to be a huge Pittsburgh fan, and like when we got our team here, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna give these guys a try. And I really love the Preds. We ain't made it yet, but we're trying to kick some ass. So no, I think it would be a great follow up to the book too. Just if you get those letters and those responses from people, just ask them, can I use this and basically come out with something else that just says, hey, this is the impact that
exactly
come from just putting it out there. So I think that would be a great follow up to this.
Yeah,
even if it was just a blog, maybe not a book, but
a blog or like a Kindle single kind of deal or something. But yeah, I do want to collect these kinds of stories because they still happen every day, even between now and the book. Recently a dad came to me and told me that their school was having graduation at the church next door, and together we acted with Freedom from Religion Foundation and put a stop to it. And if it wasn't for him bringing that to someone's attention, it never would have been solved, because Freedom from Religion Foundation seriously just can't know about every single church and state violation that exists. No matter how much they wish they could stop it all, they can't know about it. It's not like they literally are looking at a map and watching blips on a screen and saying, we've got a problem in Ohio, get to it. Like, if a parent doesn't step up and say something, it doesn't get solved. And to me, the activist in that scenario was the parent. Not me for putting them in contact with FFRF. I was a mediator. The activist was that parent that, even though they remained anonymous, which is totally acceptable because their kid has to go to that school, they have to live in that community, people do have things to lose from being atheist or doing things like this. They were an activist that made a lasting impact on that school because they'll never go to that church again for a graduation ceremony. As anonymous as they are, deserves a round of applause for standing up. More parents can do that. Because, the David Silvermans of the world want to solve all these problems, but they can only do these things if we help them. And, too many times, even today, we will see, and I'm guilty of it even now. I've wrote a book saying don't do it, and I'm guilty of it. You see a problem, and you say, I hope someone fixes that. And then you go on with your day, and then you don't think for a minute that, well, why don't I? Why am I waiting for somebody else to solve the world's problems? Why don't I get involved? It's like with politics nonstop. You're constantly, someone needs to fix this. Well, at some point, you have to stop waiting for people to do things for you. And, parents like that dad are the people that we need in this world. The ones that just say enough is enough. Let me do something about it.
Yeah, most definitely. And the more people that we have out there doing it, the more change that comes about. The impact grows with each and every person that's out there just doing their small part and then trying to make a little bit of difference where they can.
Yep.
We're in the last 8 minutes of the show. I'm going to go ahead and give everybody a chance to wrap up real quick. I'll start out with Allie, and then we'll go to Tony, and I'll let Dan give his final thoughts for the night, and then I'll wrap it up.
Okay. So a lot of people might be wondering, how can I get involved? Do you want to just plug out there that Atheist Republic is always looking for volunteers. If you're looking at our volunteer sheet and you're like, I don't know what any of this stuff is, I don't know if this is really for me or not, maybe you have a completely new idea, bring that to the table. We are always looking for new, fresh ideas and things like that. So if you want to know how to be an activist and you want a platform to speak from, we've got your platform. So come and let us know about that. And definitely, like Dan was saying, if you have ideas in your head that you're just tired of keeping to yourself, you're tired of hearing your coworkers or your neighbors or your friends on social media rail the LGBT community, and you just want to say enough is enough. I don't feel that way. Making statements on Facebook, you don't have to go out there. You don't have to, print T-shirts and march to your own tune here. You can just make subtle differences, which are greatly impacting on so many people in so many communities. Stand up if you think something is wrong. Say something if you don't like what others are saying. It's not that hard, and it might be scary at first, but you can always find support through groups online too. You're not alone. You're not alone, and so that's important to remember. And that's all I want to say.
All right, Tony?
Yeah. As far as the Atheist Republic, I've been very fortunate enough to let Allie and Casper here welcome me on their show, even though I don't know still yet as to what I'm going to do for them or for Atheist Republic, really. But yeah, don't be afraid to post anything that may lose you friends. Just even if you have to be what I call a Facebook warrior, just do what you can to spread the message. That's it.
All right, thanks, Tony. Dan, you want to go ahead and plug your book one more time and give us some final thoughts?
Sure. So my book, The Secular Activist, will be out October 1st worldwide. It will be on Kindle, on Nook, and paperback, audiobook, like I said, read by David Smalley. The foreword is written by American Atheist President David Silverman. Go to your local bookstore. I always love people buying local. If they don't have it in stock, they will have it readily available. Thankfully, my publisher has great distribution, so it'll be ready. So if you can support your local bookstore, please do so. Yeah, please buy it. Please, seriously, buy it. Check out my blog, danthropology.net. Just think anthropology as in the social science and put a D in front of it for my name. And voila, you'll wind up on my Patheos website. Or just visit danarel.com. That'll have links to everything. And, final thoughts is be active, and to steal a line from TSA, if you see something, say something.
Wonderful. Dan also failed to mention Dan has a Patreon, and Dan is trying to do some good work out there, and could use a little bit of support, a little bit of monetary help if you've got it available. Also, Atheist Republic, we have a Patreon, and we would just love some support and a little bit of help in keeping alive and able to do what we do, and just spread the message of anyone who actually has a message that they want to send out there in the secular and atheist community. And we want to continue to try and help build a strong and vibrant atheist community that actually stands for something worthwhile, and maybe have a lot of activists on our team that are out there trying to advance secular goals, and just the general idea of equality. That's really what we're all about at Atheist Republic, and we're that's really most of us, what most of us in the business, I guess you should say, of secular activism. That's what we're all about. I know we talked about Ken Ham for a little bit tonight, and I'm going to touch back on Ken. Ken and his ilk are the type of people who want to tell you that secularists just want to tear everything down, and they just want to beat down all of religion, and we want to force everybody to accept our viewpoint and do shit our way. And the reality is, all we're saying is, look, we want you to treat everybody fucking equally. Period. Just treat everybody equally, and from there, you can believe whatever. You don't have to like homosexuals in order to say, hey, we shouldn't treat homosexuals like shit. You don't have to agree with the homosexual lifestyle in order to say, hey, these are fellow human beings, and they should probably be treated, with kindness and decency, and be treated equally to everyone else. And they should have all the same things that I have, regardless of their sexuality and their gender or whatnot. So that's the general message, and that's the idea that secular activists want to get out there, and that's what secularism is really all about. And hopefully some people will watch the show, and hopefully some people will go out and pick up Dan's book, October 1st, The Secular Activist. Go grab that book and see if there's any ideas in there that just, strike you as something, hey, this isn't going to take up too much of my time, but I feel like I can make an impact, and just do it. It doesn't take a lot of time and effort, even if it's just trying to impact one or two people in your own personal life. It's a cascading effect. So go out, check out Dan's book, embrace the idea of secular activism, embrace the idea of slacktivism, and just trying to make the world a better place for all of us to live in, and a little more equal and happy place. As always, the viewpoints, ideas, opinions, and everything expressed here are not necessarily the viewpoints, ideas, and opinions of all members of Atheist Republic. We have a large team of people. We cannot possibly speak on all their behalf. So if you have a problem or complaint or anything with anything that was said here, please direct those at the Devils and God's Country, and not Atheist Republic. We just don't need to get your emails at AR. This isn't AR's thing. we just happen to be acting, under the AR banner, but we don't speak for everybody. So if you have a problem with some of the shit we said, please direct it to the Devils in God's Country, and we will be happy to address those, both friendly and non-friendly. I'm always willing to engage with the non-friendly ones. That's my job. Thank you for watching the show. This has been the Devils in God's Country, and as always, visit atheistrepublic.com. Feel free to volunteer. Feel free to throw us some money at our Patheon. That would be awesome. But if you don't have anything, just join the team, do something, read our blogs, share our blogs, do something, get involved, become part of this community, and try to make a difference. Thanks for watching the show. We'll be back same time, same place next Monday. You guys have a good night.